We just started recording and we'll get underway. We are here for a special meeting of the ARPA task force. The reason is to take up the application from DCF. This had been DCF of Middletown LLC, I should say. This was something that was considered. The presentation was given. It is a project that, I just realized my video is still off. A project that, as many of you know, is underway. It received funding as well from the state of Connecticut, and demolition started this week on the Main Street properties to get underway. And as you all know, the funds that we authorized through ARPA, this cannot actually be released until the Common Council also takes final action. We have a Common Council meeting coming up in just a couple of days, and given the time-sensitive nature of this project and the upcoming meeting, wanted to get together to take some action before that council meeting so that things can keep moving, similar to what we did for water and sewer a few months ago. So with that being said, I will open it up at this time for public comment. Any members of the public who wish to speak or address the committee, and I know that we have the applicant here, are able to do so at this time. So anybody from the public wishing to speak, just ask that you keep your comments to items on the agenda and limit them to 5 minutes. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? All right, with that being said, we will close public comment and move on to new business. So item 3A, consideration of the application from DCF of Middletown for the rehabilitation and repurposing of 418, 422, 428, and 584 Main Street. Again, we do have the applicant here who can answer questions if there are any, but why don't I first, we have members here from the review sort of subgroup that took a look at these applications. Can I ask maybe Brig, as staff to the committee, or others from the subgroup or the working group to provide a little update on where things stand with regards to this application?
Sure thing, Mayor. So the working group met, and I'm going to do my level best to share my screen with you so you can see how they went through the rubric. It may be a little difficult to see, but here is the here's the application we're considering right now. DCF of Main Street, 420 LLC, and it's for work on retail, residential, restaurant facilities on 418/20, 428, and 548 Main Street. The request was for $2.536 million. The working group is recommending partial funding at $2 million. And they came to that with the following considerations. So as you'll recall, we have 5 different categories that we look at. And it's not the Olympics. It's not like it's a hard and fast system so that, if you get an 8.7 and one of the judges doesn't like you and they give you a 4.5, you're out of luck. It's not like that. It's just it's a tool to help us sort of guide the analysis and recommendation. So it's a scale from 1 to 10, and for the number of people impacted, the working group felt that the project impacted an 8 out of 10, which is pretty high. Urgency, in other words, how much does the community need this, and how quickly must it start? That was a 7. Apologize for skipping over. Readiness to proceed. In other words, how quick can they start? We had a 9. Budget and funding. What is their financial wherewithal, and is it just relying completely on the city, or are there other sources of income and equity that they can tap? And that was a 9 for budget and funding. And the project or agency feasibility, what is the track record of the agency or the likelihood of the project's success? How likely is this thing to go from a poster board to an actual project? And the working group looked at it and felt that was a 9. So all told, 8, 7, 9, 9, 9. Those are very high scores. And so qualitatively, the working group can speak for itself. But again, based on everything they've looked at, the recommendation was to partially fund at $2 million instead of 2.536.
All right. Any questions for Brig about that? Gene, you're muted.
As a member of the working group was very enthusiastic to get this project going, and we fully recognize the level of commitment outside of the city, and track record is stellar. So we went with the revenue suggested by Attorney Smith. Was we felt sizable amount, and we're willing to commit that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sorry, I muted myself. Thank you very much, Councilman. And I know that there might be more questions and discussions, but can we have a motion to approve the funding as recommended, and then we will continue the discussion. And
Eric, can I just, before we do that, is it possible? So I had the opportunity to speak with Dominic about about how the scope of the project has changed a little bit since the committee reviewed their documents. There's some information about power and having to run power to the project, and just some things that have changed the scope of the project since we reviewed it. So it was a unique, there was one ask, and then they got another tranche of funding, so they lowered their ask. And then there has been some significant changes from what I understand. Dominic, if you'd like to share with the group, I just want to make sure everybody has all the information about what the projects are up against, and wanted to mention it is very exciting that they have had the opportunity to break ground. So we are seeing movement on these projects.
Right. Sure. Yes, I think we can entertain that before we have a formal motion. And I see Dominic's hand is up. So Dominic, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, first off, for having this meeting. I know it was put together specifically for our group. So again, I appreciate it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I had an opportunity to meet with Bobby, and now that the job has started, we started on Tuesday morning doing demolition in the rear. Some of you may have seen the equipment and the men out there working, but we've also had a chance to give out some of the jobs, for this site, and mainly we've given out the plumbing, the electrical, and the HVAC, which means that it went from on my desk where we take past information from projects that we are or were involved in, and we take numbers based on square footage, and you try to estimate, and in some cases, guesstimate a job. So I have probably about 20 years worth of experience, and a lot of my experience is in rehabbing older buildings. Take our company, DMR2 Investments. We are mainly a rehab company where all of our facilities are older buildings that we buy that are all distressed, and then we put them back together into modern day use. So we specialize in this type of work. So the numbers that I allocated to this, with my past experience, some of this I was good. But some of the things like electrical and HVAC components are problematic getting, and prices are moving for no other reason than that there's a shortage, and people are in some aspects gouging pricing to consumers. So I wanted to share this with the group, and I did share some of this with Bobby yesterday. Our plumbing quote that we had estimated on the job. Our estimated budget was $157,300. That was a budget number that I was holding, and it was pretty true to the budget. We were a little better than 1% off, so the actual number is $159,059. So we have an overage that we're paying an additional $1,759, which in a project like this is so insignificant it's not worth mentioning. But it's one of three contracts that we've given out. Electrical got away from us, and my fear is that can continue to get away from us. We're putting in 14 meters in this building with a 1600 amp service. with this appropriate switchgear to go along with it. That equipment has raised in price astronomically. Those few pallets of equipment are costing $90,000. To do the 10 apartments and the 3 retails, the total with the switchgear and the electrical labor and miscellaneous other materials is $290,000. The budget was for $226,000. So we're 28.3% over budget. So and that's $64,000 in the wrong direction. So those numbers start to sting. HVAC, the HVAC has been given out. We gave out the equipment for the HVAC to a local company. Some of you may know of a company called Plimpton Hills, but they're out of Hartford. That's where their headquarters are. We did business with all local companies to procure material. Plimpton Hills supplied us with equipment costs of $153,703. And again, these are costs. I'm able to purchase directly from these companies because of my company DiMartino's Fixtures. So I benefit by a lower cost than other people will that'll have to enter into a contract with a general contractor or a person that will put a markup on top of this. This is raw cost, $153,703. My labor cost is $130,000. My budget was for $209,000. The actual cost is $283,703, which is a 36% over budget. That's $74,703 over the budget. If I take the plumbing, the electrical, and the HVAC on those 3 that are large, I'm $140,462 above the anticipated budget. And I just want to say that on the budget, we had a 10% contingency for just this, for things that you don't see that could potentially happen in a job like this. If my numbers that I've used, and it's not if, I've used numbers, historical numbers, I have to assume that the job that I'm doing at 420, 418, and the job I'll be doing at 584, as well as at the old Woolworth site at 428, if my numbers are skewed, they're going to be skewed all the way through. Now, I know some of my numbers are going to be right where they need to be relatively, and I'm not concerned about a 1-2%. That doesn't concern me at all. But I'm thinking that if I'm $140,000 off on these 3 large numbers, it's going to follow through on the other buildings as well. We were issued half the money through the state, which we weren't sure if we were going to be successful in getting any funds from the state. And when I'd spoken to Joe and worked with the mayor and his team and Bobby and the chamber back and forth, we were hopeful to get some funds from the state, and we were fortunate that we did get $4.5 million as a city to benefit 6 projects on Main Street. But it was our thought that if we were not successful with the money from the state, that ARPA would be our opportunity to get the funds necessary to complete these projects. All of these projects are blighted buildings that really, they won't go anywhere without some funding through the state or the local municipality, because the numbers just don't make sense. There's no return on this for a developer to want to do this. When you start getting into a project and the numbers are a 2% return, a 3% return, it just doesn't make sense to go forward. And that's why we needed to get these funds from both the state and the local municipality. So my concern is that if we get shorted funds on this, it's something will have to be cut or suffer. And I want to complete these 4 projects on Main Street. I think that these will be signature development projects on Main Street that'll attract people to Main Street, similar to what Sicily has done. Certainly you see the quality of work that I'm interested in performing. I'm going to make each one of these projects be a reflection of what I've done at Sicily at 412 Main Street. And I'm excited to be part of what's happening. And I would just ask that the funding that we had asked for would be closer to the full amount versus than the $500,000. This $500,000 really, it's a tremendous amount of money. And lastly, and I don't think this is going to happen, but we had met with Eversource multiple times on site in regards to the first project. They are having difficulty getting us the power requirement to that first building. So 45 days ago, we met with an engineer who really was more lost than I can express to you. He then came back and with another person from Eversource, and they topped some manholes, and they said, "Hey, geez, we're not sure if we have the power, and if we don't have the power, your guy, meaning DFC, may have to pay for a transformer, break the roads, X, Y, and Z." At the end of the day, he also mentioned that this could cost around $300,000 to bring power to this building, and whatever work to the roads or different things that had to be done, cutting pavement, sidewalks, we'd have to bear that expense as well. I don't have to tell you that if we have to bear an expense of $300,000 to $500,000 to get power to this building, that's going to be something that's going to be problematic. I'm working with Jeff, formerly from the chamber. Fortunately, he's now in Eversource, so I have a direct connection to get in touch with him. I've spoken to Larry from the chamber, so we can get ahead of this. But these are the type of problems that we may face as a developer. These buildings themselves, and I would ask that you all at some point drive by. These are old buildings, and they have a mind of their own. When you start to take them apart or want to twist and change them, sometimes they're more willing than others. And when it happens, you just have to continue moving forward. And to do that, it costs money. And at the end of the day, I would ask that you would reconsider and perhaps up that number so that we can be successful in doing something that's really impressive on Main Street. And again, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you again.
Great. Thank you, Dominic. I see a hand up from Councilman CM.
Yes, good morning. I apologize for being late. I was trying to get on from my computer, not my laptop, but sometimes it doesn't like me. However, with all that being said, and along with what Gene said, we really did our best at the time with the information that we had to move your project, our project for the city, because we're going to get direct benefit as best as we could. God knows Gene and I understand how pricing can change, how getting material has changed. We went through this roller coaster with the Beeman School, so we fully understand it. But beyond that, these buildings, my humble opinion, are somewhat historically to Main Street. I was born in 1947, and I was, as a child, went to Woolworths, went to all these great businesses when the city was flourishing, mostly retail. So I fully understand, Dominic, what you're doing to bring back life to these buildings. I fully understand the electrical now. Now it's fully explained to us. So now I'm looking at it a little bit differently than I looked at the first application. So from what you're telling us and from the figures that you're giving us, and the issues that are unfolding on a project that's currently being done, not something that may happen or will happen, it's currently being done. So I'm going to throw out to the committee that we fully fund this project because of the immense revitalization that's going to happen at the most center core, the most busiest part, where 66, Washington Street, State Highway, everything else is happening. We need to move this project forward. So I'm throwing out a motion that before we get into motion to approve this, that we fully fund this. And if that's the motion you're looking for, Mayor, you got it from me. Thank you.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you, Councilman Pacina. Thank you, Councilman Nocera, and thank you, Dominic and team for the updates and the context. I know that we may have some more discussion. But we now do have the motion on the floor. So I will add that I have we obviously have many great applications in at this point. That's why we are working on closing down the intake process, at least for the time being, and get some of these projects approved and authorized and funded through the council. What I will sort of just add is that I think that a lot of what Dominic has brought up is valid. I appreciate the motion being made by Councilman Pacina, and happy to entertain further discussion. And yeah, so any other questions or discussion for the motion now on the floor?
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to thank Councilman Pacina. That's what I was going to suggest also. You know, it's not a sizable amount that we're adding. It's just the original amount. And we're seeing this on so many levels right now at the rec center, which is a rehab. Things are by the moment problematic sometimes. So we fully understand that it's not a sizable amount, and I might want to suggest that given the timing of this, we may, I'm not saying we will, but we might be able to entertain, down the road, an amendment, 6 months. I'm not sure the status of money that's left due to projects that didn't occur. Is there money at the end that we can act on? Is my question to Brig at the end of this, that we can look to supplement projects.
You're talking about from ARPA or from another source?
From ARPA.
Beyond what we already have by way of the 21 million, I don't see, unless I misunderstand the question, I don't see a supplemental.
The question is, we're going to by June 13th have an idea of where we stand with funding, and there may be some funds at the end that are left over that are unencumbered.
Oh, I see what you mean. I apologize. Okay, so within the $21 million, we haven't expended it all. Okay, there's nothing that would preclude us from doing additional appropriations for the existing projects.
That's my question. So it's possible we have other projects that will be faced with similar problems that our great developer is faced with now, that because of the supply chain and inflation and all. So
yeah, and I think that this is going to make that's a challenge that every community making these decisions is going to have. I think I'm grateful that we have a sort of a process that we've set up to deal with that because it's a very challenging, obviously unusual time in our economy, and the fact that this money is out there is both cause and effect of that in some respects. And so there will be more of these challenges, I think, going forward. But right, Gene, those are not unique to ARPA projects. That is happening at 80 Harbor Drive. That is happening at the rec center. It was happening at Beeman, and we will work through it. So, I think I saw Cynthia's hand up.
Yes, and this is a question for Brig. As the task force, the subcommittee task force, we did, correct me if I'm wrong, Brig, use a formula when we looked at the percentage that we would recommend for the developers. So this application also received that percentage applied to that. Am I correct in that?
My recollection is that we looked at this vis-a-vis the J.R. Hargraves project and wanted to be largely consistent with the two. Whether and to what extent the additional information changes the calculus, I don't know, but that was one of the rationales that went into the working group's decision.
I just wanted to make sure that I was remembering properly. And I think Gene's idea of, because other developers are going to be faced with the same issue that Dominic and his group is, that we consider maybe reserving some funds if we have them available.
I think that's a good thought, but I think two just contextual things that I will add to that. Number one is that I want to, Dominic mentioned this, but I think it bears repeating that they did voluntarily sort of revise downward their application numbers after they got the funding in from the state, which I think is a distinction worth drawing with the other developers that have come forward. Not that anybody was under any obligation to do that, but that is something that did happen here. And the other piece is right. I think that we are in the process right now on internally deciding what the revenue replacement city projects will be with ARPA. That will probably be something we discuss at greater length at our next full meeting. And contingency, just as a general pot of money, is something that we've talked about and would be worth considering. I think that is the project, the inflation, the supply chain issues are not going to be limited to private developers as well. And if we are, as work through the rec center and 80 Harbor Drive, that sort of thing, it does make sense to prepare for that. I also think there's going to be more unexpected changes in terms of inflation and supply chain and that sort of thing going forward. But contingency for cost overruns, I think, does make sense to set aside here as we look at our city projects going forward. All right. Any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor. All right. Seeing none, we will move to a vote. So all those in favor of motion made by Councilman Pacina, seconded by Councilman Nocera, to fund this project at the original request amount, please so signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. All opposed? All abstaining? All right. Brian is abstaining. And with that being the case, matter passes unanimously and will move forward to the Common Council for approval on June 6th. Few days. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if not.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for jumping on, and we'll stand in adjournment at 11:33, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Yes, sir. Stay healthy and safe, everyone.
Take care. You too.